TRES-2b, or not to be, is a planet where night never ends. And it's not your regular night with stars shining in the beautiful skies. Here it's pitch dark and scorching hot. TRES-2b is a gas giant, roughly 1.5 times more massive than Jupiter, and its surface absorbs light better than charcoal. It might also have a faint dark red glow because of its burning air, which is as hot as fresh lava. Lovely. In the star system of 55 Cancri, there are 5 planets, 4 of which are gas giants similar to Jupiter and Saturn. But the 5th one, or rather the first because it's closest to the star, is different in a most horrible way. 55 Cancri e is so close to its sun that half the planet's surface is a literal ocean of molten lava. The other half is in eternal darkness because it never sees the sun. The planet is always turned to its star on one side. And between the scorching and the dark, there's the twilight zone, a thin strip of gloomy nothingness. That's a getaway spot. HD 189377b, well, I'm not going to say that again, is the only exoplanet in the orbit of its star, and at first glance it looks quite pretty, blue and white swirls making up wondrous patterns on the surface. But these pleasant colors actually come from hard silicate particles in the planet's atmosphere, which means it rains glass here. But the worst is that winds reach the speed of 5,400 miles per hour, or almost Mach 7. Well, for comparison, the fastest wind speed on Earth was 254 miles per hour, over 20 times less. Thus, the glass falling from the sky travels horizontally at hypersonic speeds, shredding everything in its path. Better duck. The next system, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, this one, has 3 exoplanets, which are all being slowly destroyed by their own star. It happens because that star is not a regular. It's a pulsar, a rapidly spinning core of an exploded star. It creates powerful electromagnetic pulses in several directions while rotating at several thousand times per second. As a result, the planets orbiting this deceased star are slowly being eaten away and will eventually disappear entirely. Kepler-70, hey, I can say that one, is a hot blue dwarf star that exploded into a red giant some 18 million years ago. At the time, it was orbited by at least 2 planets, the closer of which was a Jupiter-like gas giant. Its name was Kepler-70b, and it still exists, but the overgrown star consumed it and transformed it into a blazing hot rocky world. Right now, it's one of the hottest planets ever discovered. Its temperature is higher than the surface of our Sun. It was lucky to survive spending time inside the star, but it's evaporating now and will probably be no more in the near future. WASP-12b is one of the weirdest and saddest planets out there. The enormous gravity of its star, combined with the planets consisting mostly of gas, result in the star slowly devouring its protege. So pal, what's eating you? My mother. WASP-12b has already taken the form of an egg, stretched toward its merciless sun, and it's unable to do anything with its condition. In another 10 million years, the planet will inevitably succumb to the voracious star's appetite. Hey, you asked. If you ever wondered what it's like to walk on ice and hot coals at the same time, Gliese 436b is a planet that would give you a vivid example. Being extremely close to its sun, the Neptune-sized exoplanet boasts temperatures hotter than a blazing oven, and yet it's covered in ice, which burns incessantly. This ice is much denser due to the enormous gravity of the planet, staying solid even under extreme conditions and not melting away. No list of frightening worlds could do without mentioning Venus, the Earth's evil twin. The second planet from the Sun has an atmosphere so thick and full of clouds that its surface is much hotter than that of Mercury. Volcanic eruptions constantly thrash Venus. Its gravity is almost 100 times stronger than ours, and those clouds I mentioned are not made of water but of sulfuric acid, which condenses and rains down on the ground, adding to the inferno. But even if you were brave, or crazy, enough to try to pass through these clouds, you probably couldn't. The winds up there are as strong as some of the most powerful hurricanes back on Earth. Here we have a very long name for a very cold planet. Although the host star is not too far away, it's a small and rather cool red dwarf, whose light and heat barely even reach the planet. The temperatures out there fall as low as minus 370 degrees, which is only marginally warmer than absolute zero. The exoplanet is thus dark, gloomy, and covered in eternal ice that never thaws. I thought I thaw that thumbworth. Still, if it has a rocky core, it might generate some heat, so there's a chance that deep below the frozen surface, some unknown alien things might lurk. Dimidium, located roughly 50 light-years away from our solar system, is a planet hostile to any living thing on many accounts. It's tidally locked to its sun, which means one of its sides is always facing the star, while the other is always turned away. The hot side is heated to over 1800 degrees, perpetually blown over with winds reaching 600 miles per hour. And that's winter. Well, actually, I don't know that. Despite Dimidium being a gas giant, it has a large amount of iron in it, which melts and evaporates in the atmosphere, creating clouds. And when those cool down, they fall on the surface in the infernal rain of molten iron. That'll test your mettle. Oxygen is usually viewed as an element that might bring life to a planet, but this is definitely not the case for Osiris. Scientists were shocked to find oxygen on this planet, or rather around it, because it's 8 times closer to its star than Mercury is to the Sun. This extreme distance makes Osiris a living melting pot, where anything that could burn will. It's also responsible for a very short orbit of the planet around the star. A year on Osiris is just 3.5 days on Earth. To boot, the atmosphere of the planet is constantly blown and melted away by the heat from its sun. Vacation? Nah, let's keep looking. Karat Exo 3b is neither as hot nor as cold as some of the others on this list, but it's terrifying in its own more insidious way. It's a gas giant similar in size to Jupiter, yet 20 times denser. This makes this exoplanet's gravity weigh down on everything on its surface 50 times more than it would on Earth. Stepping on it would be your ultimate doom, because you'd be immediately crushed by the density of its atmosphere. Karat 7b is another oven-like world. Its day-to-day temperature is over 4,000 degrees. Combined with the rocky surface, it presents an infernal landscape. The rocks on the ground bubble and boil, evaporating in the atmosphere, where they cool down and eventually fall back on the surface in a brimstone rain. The saddest thing about Karat 7b is that it might have once been a gas giant whose atmosphere melted away from the heat, leaving only the scorched core. TRES-2b is a planet where night never ends. And it's not your regular night with stars shining in the beautiful skies. Here it's pitch dark and scorching hot. TRES-2b is a gas giant, roughly 1.5 times more massive than Jupiter, and its surface absorbs light better than charcoal. It might also have a faint dark red glow because of its burning air, which is as hot as fresh lava. Lovely. In the star system of 55 Cancri, there are 5 planets, 4 of which are gas giants similar to Jupiter and Saturn. But the 5th one, or rather the first because it's closest to the star, is different in a most horrible way. 55 Cancri E is so close to its sun that half the planet's surface is a literal ocean of molten lava. The other half is in eternal darkness because it never sees the sun. The planet is always turned to its star on one side, and between the scorching and the dark, there's the twilight zone, a thin strip of gloomy nothingness. HD 189377b, I'm not going to say that again, is the only exoplanet in the orbit of its star, and at first glance it looks quite pretty, blue and white swirls making up wondrous patterns on the surface. But these pleasant colors actually come from hard silicate particles in the planet's atmosphere, which means it rains glass here. But the worst is that winds reach the speed of 5,400 miles per hour, or almost Mach 7. Well, for comparison, the fastest wind speed on Earth was 254 miles per hour, over 20 times less. Thus, the glass falling from the sky travels horizontally at hypersonic speeds, shredding everything in its path. The next system, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, this one, has 3 exoplanets, which are all being slowly destroyed by their own star. It happens because that star is not a regular. It's a pulsar, a rapidly spinning core of an exploded star. It creates powerful electromagnetic pulses in several directions while rotating at several thousand times per second. As a result, the planets orbiting this deceased star are slowly being eaten away and will eventually disappear entirely. Kepler-70 is a hot blue dwarf star that exploded into a red giant some 18 million years ago. At the time, it was orbited by at least 2 planets, the closer of which was a Jupiter-like gas giant. Its name was Kepler-70b, and it still exists, but the overgrown star consumed it and transformed it into a blazing hot rocky world. Right now, it's one of the hottest planets ever discovered. Its temperature is higher than the surface of our Sun. It was lucky to survive spending time inside the star, but it's evaporating now and will probably be no more in the near future. WASP-12b is one of the weirdest and saddest planets out there. The enormous gravity of its star, combined with the planets consisting mostly of gas, result in the star slowly devouring its protege. WASP-12b has already taken the form of an egg, stretched toward its merciless sun, and it's unable to do anything with its condition. In another 10 million years, the planet will inevitably succumb to the voracious star's appetite. If you ever wondered what it's like to walk on ice and hot coals at the same time, Gliese 436b is a planet that would give you a vivid example. Being extremely close to its sun, the Neptune-sized exoplanet boasts temperatures hotter than a blazing oven, and yet it's covered in ice, which burns incessantly. This ice is much denser due to the enormous gravity of the planet, staying solid even under extreme conditions and not melting away. No list of frightening worlds could do without mentioning Venus, the Earth's evil twin. The second planet from the Sun has an atmosphere so thick and full of clouds that its surface is much hotter than that of Mercury. Volcanic eruptions constantly thrash Venus. Its gravity is almost 100 times stronger than ours, and those clouds I mentioned are not made of water but of sulfuric acid, which condenses and rains down on the ground, adding to the inferno. But even if you were brave, or crazy, enough to try to pass through these clouds, you probably couldn't. The winds up there are as strong as some of the most powerful hurricanes back on Earth. Here we have a very long name for a very cold planet. Although the host star is not too far away, it's a small and rather cool red dwarf, whose light and heat barely even reach the planet. The temperatures out there fall as low as minus 370 degrees, which is only marginally warmer than absolute zero. The exoplanet is thus dark, gloomy, and covered in eternal ice that never thaws. Still, if it has a rocky core, it might generate some heat, so there's a chance that deep below the frozen surface, some unknown alien things might lurk. Dimidium, located roughly 50 light-years away from our solar system, is a planet hostile to any living thing on many accounts. It's tidally locked to its sun, which means one of its sides is always facing the star, while the other is always turned away. The hot side is heated to over 1800 degrees, perpetually blown over with winds reaching 600 miles per hour. Despite Dimidium being a gas giant, it has a large amount of iron in it, which melts and evaporates in the atmosphere, creating clouds. And when those cool down, they fall on the surface in the infernal rain of molten iron. Oxygen is usually viewed as an element that might bring life to a planet, but this is definitely not the case for Osiris. Scientists were shocked to find oxygen on this planet, or rather around it, because it's 8 times closer to its star than Mercury is to the Sun. This extreme distance makes Osiris a living melting pot, where anything that could burn will. It's also responsible for a very short orbit of the planet around the star. A year on Osiris is just 3.5 days on Earth. To boot, the atmosphere of the planet is constantly blown and melted away by the heat from its sun. Karat Exo 3b is neither as hot nor as cold as some of the others on this list, But it's terrifying in its own more insidious way. It's a gas giant similar in size to Jupiter, yet 20 times denser. This makes this exoplanet's gravity weigh down on everything on its surface 50 times more than it would on Earth. Stepping on it would be your ultimate doom, because you'd be immediately crushed by the density of its atmosphere. Karat 7b is another oven-like world. Its day-to-day temperature is over 4,000 degrees. Combined with the rocky surface, it presents an infernal landscape. The rocks on the ground bubble and boil, evaporating in the atmosphere, where they cool down and eventually fall back on the surface in a brimstone rain. The saddest thing about Karat 7b is that it might have once been a gas giant whose atmosphere melted away from the heat, leaving only the scorched core. We're used to thinking that asteroids are the only free-floating rocks in space, but things like OTS-44 make you think twice and shiver. Imagine a planet about 11 times more massive than Jupiter roaming in space without being bound to the orbit of any star. Given its gargantuan size and mass, if OTS-44 collides with any other planet, it would utterly destroy it and go on floating as if nothing happened. Scarier still, scientists are sure there are millions of such rogue planets out there, just waiting to be discovered. There's no hard proof of their existence yet, but theoretically, carbon planets have formed somewhere closer to the center of our galaxy. Any oxygen getting in their atmosphere would get into a reaction with carbon and transform into CO2, forming black toxic clouds. On the ground, there would be oceans made of tar, spewing up geysers of methane and crude oil. There would be rains too, but they'd be far from refreshing. Torrents of pure gasoline and hot liquid asphalt would blast the ground and probably burst into flames on impact. Hard to imagine anything that would survive such conditions. This planet, yeah, the one right here, shouldn't exist, but it does. A newly discovered planet rotates around a star that's much smaller and dimmer than our Sun. The planet, however, is enormous. Such a tiny star couldn't create it, so it's like finding an ostrich egg in a chicken coop. A team at Penn State built a special tool called the Habitable Zone Planet Finder. It's an instrument that's supposed to find planets around dim, cool stars. It's connected to a big telescope in Texas. The tool looks at the light from these stars, which is mostly in the near-infrared, beyond what our eyes can see. This gadget can spot changes in a star's speed caused by a planet. If the star movement slightly changes, that means there must be a gravitational pull nearby. Years ago, this technique helped find the first known exoplanet around a star like our Sun. Today, we've improved this method to make more precise measurements. Our main goal is to find Earth-like planets. They should be rocky and located in habitable zones, areas around stars where liquid water could exist. The Doppler technique isn't that great at finding Earth-like worlds yet, but works well for cool, dim stars. And that's how we discovered the impossible LHS 3154b. Planets usually form in disks made of gas and dust in space. Picture a flat, spinning cloud of tiny particles. These particles come together and stick to each other, creating a flat, rotating disk. Over time, these tiny bits combine to form a solid core. This is the starting point for a planet. Once the core is there, it attracts more dust and even gas like hydrogen and helium. But making a planet this way isn't easy. They need a lot of stuff, mass, and materials. This process is called core accretion. Stars are a huge help in that process. Usually, big stars have more gravity, so they can gather more stuff to form planets. But the star we discovered recently isn't very big. It's 9 times smaller than our Sun. A star this small shouldn't have a big enough disk to make a heavy planet. To do that, its disk should have been at least 10 times bigger. But this heavy planet, LHS 3154b, exists. Now, this mysterious planet is 13 times heavier than our Earth. It's similar in size to Neptune. It's about 50 light-years away from us in the Hercules constellation, which, in space terms, is very close. The planet is also super close to its star, completing 1 year in almost 4 days. This discovery is making scientists rethink their ideas about how planets and stars come into existence. There are new theories coming around. For example, a theory called gravitational instability. It says that, instead of the pieces coming together bit by bit, the material in the disk collapses all at once, directly creating a planet. But even with this theory, it's hard to explain how such a heavy planet could form without a really massive disk. It'll take us some time to figure out the truth. This isn't the first planet that makes us doubt our theories. Recently, scientists found another planet called Hala. This planet is orbiting a star called Baekdu, and just like the previous one, it shouldn't really exist. It's way too close to its star. Stars change a lot during their lives. Normally, when a star becomes big and prepares to leave this world, it's called the red giant stage. A star like that tends to destroy or push away any nearby planets, creating a huge mess. Hala rotates around a red giant, and it should have been swallowed or destroyed by the expanding star a long time ago. But it's still hanging there. Even though Baekdu has already started burning helium and shrunk to a smaller size than expected, Hala isn't bothered in the slightest. Scientists call Hala the Forbidden Planet. This discovery challenges what we thought about how planets survive near aging stars. It raises two theories. One suggests that Baekdu was once two stars, a white dwarf and a red giant. Hala orbited them both, and they merged before the red giant fully expanded. This allowed Hala to survive because the extra helium from the white dwarf prevented the red giant from growing too much. The second theory says that Hala formed from the debris created when the two stars merged. In this scenario, Hala would be a very young planet orbiting an elderly star. Astronomers plan to continue studying Hala and look for more planets like that. Another oddball, besides me, is called LTT 9779b. This one scares us too because it's too shiny. The planet reflects 80% of the light from its star. Regular mirrors reflect from 85 to almost 100% of light, which means that this mysterious planet should look like a rough mirror, with aluminum or silver-like reflections. This is another Neptune-sized planet. It's located 268 light-years from us and was discovered by NASA's TESS spacecraft. It completes a full rotation around its star in just 19 hours. It's so close to its star that it's scorching hot, reaching temperatures over 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Normally, planets this close lose their atmosphere and turn into bare rocks. But this one breaks the rules again. Now this time, we know the secret of its survival. It's because of the planet's shiny metallic clouds, which are made of glass and titanium salt. These clouds rain titanium onto its hot surface. They also reflect a lot of the light, preventing the planet from getting too hot and losing its atmosphere. It's like having a mirror shield. This planet's size also surprised scientists. It's way bigger than Earth. Other planets this close to their stars are either much bigger gas giants or small rocky planets. This planet is a smaller gas giant, and scientists didn't expect it to exist so close to its star. This is the shiniest planet ever found, even shinier than Venus. But despite its cool appearance, it's probably not a friendly place for life because of its extreme temperatures and strange metallic rain. And our final rule breaker is a planet called WASP 107b. Scientists discovered it using the James Webb Space Telescope. It's located around 208 light-years from us in the Virgo constellation. It's also fast and completes an orbit around its star in just 6 days. This is a super Neptune exoplanet. It's similar to Jupiter in some ways, including the same size and scorching hot temperatures. But the main difference is that it's much lighter, weaker, and less dense. This is the least dense planet we've discovered so far. After researching some more, we also found that it has a tail. The helium on the planet extends beyond the transit egress. The planet is slowly losing its atmosphere due to extreme ultraviolet radiation from the star. This creates a comet-like tail. So, it looks like a fluffy comet. But that was just the beginning. The planet's low density, or fluffiness, allowed astronomers to study its atmosphere in detail. They found some surprising things, like water vapor and clouds made of fine silicate particles, which are like really fine-grained sand. The planet's host star doesn't emit a lot of high-energy light. But since WASP 107b is so loose, the light can penetrate deep into its atmosphere. This creates sulfur dioxide that smell when you light a match. In other words, it's a fluffy planet that rains sand and smells like matches. The researchers think the sand clouds in the atmosphere form in a similar way to clouds on Earth. They just have droplets of sand instead of water. These sand droplets condense, fall, turn into silicate vapor in hot layers within the planet, and then rise again to form clouds once more. And, once again, this planet couldn't have formed in its current spot. Astronomers say that it likely moved closer to its star from a birth orbit because it was attracted by some heavier neighbor. It also follows a retrograde orbit, meaning it orbits in the opposite direction to its star's rotation. All these discoveries are changing how we understand planets and their atmospheres, giving us new insights into the mysteries of our own solar system.
From planets with glass rain and oceans of lava, to worlds with 3 suns and giant diamonds, our universe is full of surprises. Sometimes we find celestial bodies that shouldn't even exist at all. But despite all logical reasoning, they live and thrive. In 2023, we discovered another impossible planet, TOI 5295b. Once again, our universe turns out to be much more complicated than we thought, and this isn't the only strange planet that we've discovered in recent years. So, let's take a look at a couple of these impossible planets. TOI 5205b is the first one on the list. This is an unusually large planet orbiting a small star. It's located about 280 light-years from Earth. It's quadrillions of miles, but on a cosmic scale, it's pretty close. This planet was discovered just recently, in 2023. So why is it so special? Because it doesn't follow the rules of planetary formation, like other planets in its neighborhood. TOI 5205b is a bit of a rebel because it orbits a tiny red dwarf star that's only 4 times larger than Jupiter. What's so weird about it, you ask? Well, you see, a red dwarf is basically like the runt of the litter in the world of stars. This type of star is rather cold, about 2 times colder than the Sun. They have a reddish tint, hence the name. And yep, stars work quite strangely. The closer they are to red, the colder they are, and the closer to blue, the hotter they are. Hey, I don't make the rules. Anyway, because of all this, they aren't very bright, so without a good telescope, you won't see them in the sky. But they aren't just some space losers. They're the most common stars in the universe. They also live much longer than our Sun, and thanks to this, they usually have a bunch of different planets orbiting them, including those similar to our Earth. So if one day we decide to find a new home, it may well be near some red dwarf. But here's the catch with TOI 5205b. It's a gas giant. Gas giants like, for example, Jupiter or Saturn, are the behemoths of the universe. These planets are mainly made up of gases like hydrogen and helium. They don't have a solid surface like Earth or Mars, so you can't exactly land on them without getting crushed by the immense pressure. And they're not called giants for nothing. They're absolutely massive. In fact, if you took all the other planets in our solar system and squished them together, they still wouldn't be as big as Jupiter. In other words, they're the gassy wrestlers of the planetary family. So, how is it possible that such a huge planet orbits such a small, weak star? Red dwarfs are usually considered too small to host gas giants. Moreover, it's physically impossible. Or at least, so we thought. But TOI 5205b had other plans and decided to form near a red dwarf anyway. It's like a small pea orbiting around a lemon, which doesn't sound that bad until you remember that Jupiter next to our Sun is like a pea next to a basketball. Only really big stars are able to keep such big planets nearby. This had astronomers scratching their heads as it went against everything they thought they knew about planet formation. And while we try to figure out how TOI 5205b managed to break the rules, the planet itself seems pretty content to blaze its path through the cosmos. And it isn't the only one. In recent years, scientists have discovered a bunch of such forbidden planets. So let's check out the other ones. For example, TOI 3757b, a giant planet with the density of a marshmallow. Imagine a giant planet that's so soft and fluffy it's like a marshmallow floating in space. That's right, TOI 3757b is a gas giant that's been dubbed the Marshmallow Planet because of its incredibly low density. Of course, it's not edible and cute like real marshmallows, but it would still be fun to touch it. This planet was discovered in 2022. It's located in the constellation of Auriga the Charioteer, 591 light-years from us. Just like the previous one, it's also orbiting around a red dwarf star. And get this, TOI 3757b only takes around 3 days to complete one orbit. Imagine having a birthday every 3 days. It's also incredibly close to its star, just some 3.5 million miles away. For comparison, the distance between the Sun and the planet closest to it, Mercury, is about 36 million miles. So TOI 3757b is like right on top of its star. Let's hope this marshmallow planet doesn't get too toasted. Now let's talk about how this planet was discovered. It was spotted by the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, a space detective on the hunt for new planets. The transit detection method is when scientists use the star's light to find their planets. When the planet passes through the star, it blocks a tiny portion of the star's light, making it look a little dimmer for a while. Scientists can detect this dip in brightness using special instruments. If the dip happens regularly, they can tell that there's a planet orbiting the star. The size of the dip in brightness tells scientists how big the planet is and how close it is to the star. If the dip is really small, that means the planet is probably pretty small too. And if the dip happens more frequently, that means the planet is probably closer to the star. And this is how we discovered our Marshmallow Planet and many other ones. Overall, TOI 3757b is a fascinating planet that's captured our imaginations with its unique properties. Now, let's move on to the next mysterious celestial body. TYC 8998-760-1b on the border of a planet and a star. Whew, that was a mouthful. Let me introduce you to a planet whose name I won't repeat. Well, this baby is also a gas giant. But not just any gas giant. In fact, it's so big, it could make Jupiter feel like a tiny pebble in comparison. I mean, it's 14 times the mass of Jupiter and 3 times as big around. Isn't that impressive? It orbits a very young, sun-like star 300 light-years away. This star is only 17 million years old, and yes, it's considered a baby among the stars. For comparison, our own Sun is about 4.5 billion years old. But the star itself isn't that interesting. The planet, on the other hand, is a bit of a weirdo. You see, planets just can't be that big. With its enormous mass, it should be a star. It's kind of like the Caspian Sea, which is considered the largest lake in the world. Just as the Caspian Sea isn't really a sea or a lake, this planet is the middle child of the universe. Not quite a star, but not exactly a planet either. Some scientists think that it might be a failed star, which is like saying a cake that didn't rise properly. And let's talk about its temperature. You know how you feel like a baked potato when it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside? Well, this planet laughs at us. Its estimated surface temperature is a whopping 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than a jalapeno popper straight out of the fryer. This time, the planet was discovered by the imaging detection method. You see, capturing pictures of exoplanets is no easy feat. The star is always way brighter and ruins the pic. It's like trying to take a selfie with your crush while your annoying little sibling is jumping up and down in front of you. But scientists have a solution. They use some specialized optics and clever observation methods, like coronography. They basically block out the light of a star so that we can see the planet more clearly. Magic, right? And that's how they discovered this not-a-star planet too. And now it's giving scientists a lot to think about. It makes us question what we know about the formation of planets. Let's hope we'll find out more about it in the future. It's amazing to think about the weird and wacky things that exist in our universe, and these planets definitely fit the bill. Who knows what else is out there waiting to be discovered? Maybe someday we'll find a planet that's even more impossible than the ones we just discussed. Until then, keep your eyes on the skies and your mind open to the infinite possibilities of our universe.
Our universe is full of both amazing and terrifying things. You already know about quasars, black holes, dark matter, and so on. But how about the horrors of space that you haven't even heard of? Would you like to visit the most bizarre worlds in the universe? And it's not me who made this list, but NASA themselves. Welcome to the Galaxy of Horrors, NASA's awesome Halloween collection. Please join me on a journey to some planets and tell me which ones you would consider the most horrible. Buckle up! Our first destination is a gas giant called TRES 2b. It's located 750 light-years away from us. If we used a regular spaceship, it would take us about 10 million years to get there. TRES 2b orbits a yellow dwarf, a star similar to our Sun. It also weighs about 1.5 times more than Jupiter. So, what's so special about it? Well, if you're afraid of the dark, you definitely don't want to visit this place. It's the planet of eternal night, the darkest one of all the planets known to us. But it's not that far from its star, so why is that? The thing is, the surface of TRES 2b reflects light even worse than coal does. Because of this, it seems that there's no light at all. If you were flying across the surface of this planet, it would be like walking with a blindfold on your eyes. Oh wait, actually there is some light. An eerie deep red glow surrounds the surface of the planet. This glow is created by the burning atmosphere, which makes TRES 2b a scorching planet. The air there is even hotter than lava. Oh, but if you think that was bad, let me show you the next place of our horror journey. NASA wasn't beating about the bush while nicknaming this one. Now, we're not just talking about one planet, but 3 at once. They're also located quite far away, 2,300 light-years from the Sun. We would have reached them by ship in about 35 million years. All the planets are in the constellation Virgo, and each is extremely light, much lighter than the Earth. These 3 exoplanets are called Poltergeist, Dragger, and Phobator. Cool names, huh? It's because each of these planets is about to become a ghost soon. The thing is, they don't revolve around a star, but around a pulsar. Pulsars are rotating neutron stars with an extremely powerful magnetic field. In simple words, these are the stars that exploded one day. After the explosion, they usually emit such a powerful pulse that it causes the star to rotate at an unimaginable speed, several thousand rotations per second. At the same time, they constantly emit electromagnetic pulses that affect everything around them. So, you've probably already guessed what's happening with our zombie planets. They're slowly, gradually being destroyed under the gigantic influence of radiation. One day, they'll disappear without a trace. Ghost-like planets orbiting an undead star? Yeah, Zombie World is a fitting name. It's also not surprising that scientists nicknamed this pulsar Lich, despite the long official name. Well, at least these guys stick together on their final dance. This planet has a long name, so bear with me. HD 189733b. This gas giant is 65 light-years away from us. It would have taken around 1 million years to get there on a spaceship. This planet is slightly more massive than Jupiter and orbits its star, an orange dwarf, all alone. At first glance, it may seem friendly. A pleasant blue color and curls on the surface. Kind of resembles a summer sky or foam on sea waves, right? Oh, looks are very deceptive, my friend. This planet has a pleasant cobalt blue color due to the hazy blowtorched atmosphere. This atmosphere contains silicates that condense when heated. In other words, the clouds on this planet have rain made of glass. Yes, it rains hot glass shards here. Oh, and if that's not enough, there's a raging wind on the surface, which is moving at a speed of 5,400 miles per hour. Just to compare, the fastest wind on Earth had a speed of 254 miles per hour, about 20 times weaker. And because of this, hundreds of thousands of glass shards rush horizontally across the planet's surface at breakneck speed. I really don't envy anyone who would want to try to land there. By the way, this isn't the only example of strange rains in our universe. For example, it rains molten iron on the planet Dimidium. Or let's take so-called carbon planets. Their existence hasn't yet been proven, but if they do exist, there would be tons of black poisonous clouds, and it would rain pure gasoline and hot liquid asphalt. Oh, and also, raindrops would explode upon touching the surface. Nothing special. The next planet, though, is actually really strange. It didn't just revolve around its star, it lived inside the star. This cosmic miracle is called Koi 55b, or Kepler 70b. This planet is very far away from us, 4,000 light years. It would take about 70 million years on a spaceship. It's twice as light as Earth and fully rotates around its star in just a couple of hours. A long time ago, it was an ordinary Earth-like planet about the size of Jupiter. It was peacefully and calmly orbiting its red dwarf star, Koi 55. But everything changed about 700 million years ago. Perhaps you've heard that in a couple billion years, our sun will begin to expand into a huge star, absorbing everything in its path. Well, this is the fate of red dwarfs. Sooner or later, they increase, turning into incredibly hot blue giants. The same thing happened with Koi 55. This star began to increase in size and heat up in temperature, gradually turning into a blue-white giant. It was ready to devour its nearest planets. But Koi 55b didn't care about it. When the star reached it, this planet just settled inside. And moreover, after some time, it left its star, simply returning to the new orbit. How was that even possible? Life inside its star turned Koi 55b into a red-hot round stone. It's one of the hottest planets we've discovered so far. The temperature on it reaches 12,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's hotter than the sun, which is, let me remind you, an actual star. And for some reason, it's still alive and lives as if nothing happened. Unfortunately, sooner or later, the planet will disappear anyway. It's slowly evaporating itself due to the incandescent atmosphere. But still, it somehow managed to survive the journey through the star, which isn't typical for regular planets, to put it mildly. I envy this willpower. However, not all planets are so lucky. Some are gradually being destroyed by their stars, and there is even an entire system among them. This last planet is a sad loner. It's located 870 light-years away from us. The journey by ship to it would take about 25 million years. This planet is about 1.5 times more massive than Jupiter. This is a very sad, dark planet. A doomed gas giant, which is very similar to hot Jupiter, orbits its star all alone. At the same time, it's located so close to its star that its orbital period takes just 1 day. Of course, because of this proximity, the star gradually absorbs WASP-12b. The scorching heat of the star is slowly destroying and devouring the planet's atmosphere. The planet has only around 10 million years left. But what's more interesting, because of this stretching, WASP-12b acquired the shape of an egg. It doesn't even resemble an actual planet anymore. It's also very hot. The surface temperature of the gas giant reaches 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, a spectrograph of cosmic origin, or COS for short, found that the planet exchanges matter with its star. They're located so close that they give each other part of their chemical elements. This is a common phenomenon in closely spaced binary star systems, but this is the first time scientists have seen this in a star-planet relationship. What a unique system. To be honest, if I was guaranteed complete security, I'd be excited to visit at least some of them. What about you? Please let me know in the comments.
Stars are beautiful, colorful things. There are red giants. Those are nearing the end of their lives and are on the verge of explosions. Blue stars shine in the belt of the constellation Orion, as well as other places. Yellow ones, like our sun, are pretty ordinary. They're usually warm and stable enough to support life. But look at the night sky attentively. Do you see any green or purple stars? Nope. They're kinda invisible because of the way we humans perceive visible light. The color of a star mostly depends on its surface temperature. The hotter it is, the shorter wavelengths the light it emits will have. The hottest stars are blue or white blue. Those are some of the shortest wavelengths of light. Cooler stars are normally red and red-brown, which are longer wavelengths. At the same time, stars never send out their light in just one wavelength. It's more of a range of light. The wavelengths of light from a star peak in just one color in a bell-shaped curve. But the star emits other colors too. Human eyes have evolved to see yellow and green radiation, probably because our sun emits it mainly in these wavelengths. But a green star emits radiation right in the center of the visible light spectrum, in all possible colors. That's why such stars appear white, which is a combination of all hues. Actually, our sun emits quite a lot of green light, but we perceive it as white. Purple stars, though, are something our eyes won't ever see because they're sensitive to blue light. And since stars emitting purple light send out a lot of blue light too, because these shades are next to each other on the visible light spectrum. The human eye picks up only the blue light. When it comes to other objects in the solar system, many planets seem to have no obvious hue. Look at Venus, Saturn, or Jupiter. They look kinda bland, probably whitish at best, but there are several planets that boast very decisive colors. For example, Mars looks orange-red, Neptune is blue, and Uranus has a beautiful blue-green hue. The planet gets it from all that methane gas in its atmosphere. Meteors sometimes display a vivid green too, and look at breathtaking bright auroras. Green is the most common color of the northern lights. But not stars, never stars. The brightest star in the sky, besides our sun of course, is Sirius. It's twice as bright as its competitor, Canopus, located in the southern constellation Carina. Being the most brilliant, Sirius is very easy to identify. Probably the coolest thing about this star is that it seems to be changing its color. But we'll get to it a bit later. This star is whiter and hotter than the sun. Its surface temperature is 17,300 degrees F, while the sun's surface temperature only reaches 10,000 degrees F. When you combine the immense heat Sirius emits with its girth, 1.75 times the size of the sun, you'll understand why the star looks so bright in the night sky. Sirius has a companion star. It's called the Pup. It's a tiny but incredibly dense white dwarf with a diameter of a mere 7,000 miles. This makes it smaller than Earth. At the same time, its mass reaches 98% of that of the Sun. It means that the matter inside this tiny star is squeezed very, very tightly. That's why its gravitational pull is 350,000 times greater than Earth's. A person weighing 150 pounds would weigh 50 million pounds on this star. Now, Sirius is famous for its twinkling, and since it is also the brightest star, we can observe the ever-present turbulence in its atmosphere quite well. As for the star changing its color, it has to do with the atmosphere of our planet. Pockets of air at different temperatures focus starlight this way and that like small lenses. We see it as twinkling. But since white light is made of different colors, one pocket might send some red our way. Another will send blue or yellow in totally random order. That's why it seems that Sirius twinkles in color.
Now, I don't want to freak you out, but something bizarre has erupted in the depths of space. It was an explosion brighter than billions of suns. But the real mystery is that it doesn't match anything astronomers have ever seen. Usually, cosmic events like this follow familiar patterns, but not this one. It's a cosmic anomaly. This strange cosmic explosion has left astronomers totally baffled. It could be a super rare event where everything lines up just right, or it could be something completely new, never seen before. This event was first detected by an X-ray space telescope called the Einstein probe on April 8, 2024. It first appeared to be a regular gamma-ray burst. Those typically give off incredibly bright X-rays. But could the answer really be so simple? Something didn't add up. Now, gamma-ray bursts are the most powerful explosions in the universe, and they can happen in unusual ways. Long-duration gamma-ray bursts are caused by the demise of massive stars that spin incredibly quickly. When these stars run out of fuel, their cores collapse under gravity, forming an extremely dense object like a black hole. At the same time, the outer layers of the star are blown away in a massive explosion called a supernova. Gamma-ray bursts are followed by jets. Those are twin beams of material shooting out from opposite sides of the collapsing object. They're super fast, moving at nearly the speed of light. These jets appear brighter if they're pointed directly at us. It's like how a flashlight beam is brightest when it's aimed straight at you rather than at an angle. Now back to our unusual cosmic explosion. Remember me telling you something wasn't adding up? Hey, it was just 45 seconds ago. Well, the problem was that when multiple telescopes observed this event in different wavelengths – ultraviolet, optical, near-infrared, radio, X-rays, gamma rays, you name it – it didn't match any known type of event. The most likely explanation, according to current research, is that this explosion is the result of a white dwarf star being torn apart by a medium-sized black hole. And still, it's not so simple. Now, black holes are areas in space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. That's why they're called black holes. It's believed that stars with at least 3 times the mass of our Sun can collapse under their own gravity once they run out of their stellar fuel. When a star has so much mass packed into such a small space, its gravity becomes so powerful that it forces everything, including atoms, to squish together. This intense density leads to the formation of a black hole. So, when a white dwarf star is torn apart by a medium-sized black hole, it results in a high-speed jet of material that can be aimed directly at Earth. So, could this space disaster be the reason behind our mysterious event? Unfortunately, even though it ticks some boxes for several types of phenomena, including the one involving a white dwarf, it still doesn't fit all the criteria for any of them. The event's short duration and high luminosity are hard to explain using any scenarios we can produce. So, does it mean we have come across something completely new? The universe is full of energetic flashes caused by outbursts from stars and black holes, supernova explosions, stars being eaten by black holes, and other cosmic events. Astronomers usually figure out what these events are by analyzing their duration, frequency, source, and the specific combination of wavelengths they emit. Here, I just have to say a few words about the instrument that discovered this space anomaly. The Einstein probe is an X-ray space telescope project led by the Chinese Academy of Science in collaboration with the European Space Agency and the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics. That's a mouthful. This project is all about studying high-energy space events over time. Its main goal is to find inactive black holes and figure out how matter falls into them by spotting X-ray flares produced by these sudden space events. The Einstein probe also hopes to catch the electromagnetic signals from events that cause gravitational waves, like when neutron stars merge. It also keeps an eye on the whole sky to spot all kinds of space explosions and track already known changing X-ray sources. After the Einstein probe detected that ultra-bright space flash, the event was also observed by a few other ground-based and space telescopes, including the Nuclear Spectroscopic Telescope Array, SWIFT, Gemini, Keck, Dark Energy Camera, Very Large Array, Australia Telescope Compact Array, and Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer. That's a bigger mouthful. Using all this data, astronomers pieced together the event's characteristics, but it didn't make the case any clearer. Quite the opposite. It just deepened the mystery. This event flared up in soft X-rays for the first 10 seconds, then plateaued at a steady glow for about 4 days before fading quickly within another day. This is much longer than typical gamma-ray bursts, which usually last from a few milliseconds to several hours. but it was still not long enough to fit into other known categories. The event's brightness in X-rays was also unusual. It was too bright for some types of phenomenon, but not bright enough for others. The most puzzling part is that the Very Large Array didn't detect any radio emission from the source when it was observed 11 days, 158 days, and 258 days after the initial flare. And normally, when something this bright in X-rays lasts for this long, it's usually associated with a luminous radio counterpart. But in this case, no radio signals were detected, which is very strange and adds to the mystery. Astronomers didn't give up and considered several other possibilities, like fast blue optical transients. Those are a new class of explosions that release huge amounts of energy and blast matter into space at incredibly high speeds. These bursts are so powerful that one F-bot can be at least 10 times more powerful than a regular supernova. Fast blue optical transients do look like supernova explosions, but they are much faster. They flare up and fade away much more quickly than regular supernova. They're also much hotter, which makes the light seem bluer compared to other supernova. Since these explosions happen so quickly, it's tough to figure out what causes them. In January 2019, astronomers narrowed it down to two causes: a black hole consuming a white dwarf star, or a rare kind of supernova that leads to the formation of a neutron star or a black hole. Now, another explanation for our mysterious space explosion, and astronomers think it's the most likely one, is a tidal disruption event. It happens when a black hole swallows a star, causing a flash of light. When a star gets too close to a supermassive black hole, it doesn't get off easily. No, the black hole's powerful tidal forces tear the star apart, breaking it into pieces and pulling it toward the black hole. Its remains turn into a stream of debris that falls toward the black hole's accretion disk. However, before the debris settles into the disk, it overshoots the black hole in an elliptical path, only to be pulled back in. At one point in this path, the debris collides violently with other parts of the star being pulled in, and that's when we start to see the first bursts of emissions. In some rare cases, tidal disruption events create huge jets of material that shoot out from the black hole's poles. If these jets happen to point directly at Earth, we can see the signature of the event. It often looks like an intermediate mass black hole eating a white dwarf star. However, there should still be some radio emissions coming from the jet of a tidal disruption event. The reason none have been detected yet might be that the event was likely observed too early. Previous studies suggest that it can take hundreds or even thousands of days for the jet material to slow down enough to start sending out radio signals. If future observations pick up radio emissions, it could help solve the mystery. But if there are no signals, it might mean it's a very unusual gamma ray burst or something completely new that we haven't seen before.
In March 2018, a team of scientists claimed that they had found a galaxy without dark matter. The thing is, around 84% of matter in the universe doesn't emit or absorb light. Astronomers call this stuff, which can neither be seen directly nor detected by indirect means, dark matter. It supposedly affects visible matter, radiation, and the very structure of the universe. It also seems to exert gravitational pull without interacting with light. The existence of this bizarre matter was suggested to explain an even weirder phenomenon. Based on the light scientists can see with their telescopes, the universe acts as if there's much more mass in it and, therefore, much more gravitational force than our theories predict. That's why that galaxy without dark matter might be the first such object ever found in the universe. Plus, it could deal a blow to an alternative theory explaining the weirdness of our universe. According to that theory, gravity acts a bit differently than we thought, but in this case, it should be different everywhere in the universe, including this dark matterless galaxy, not just in some spots. But there's one problem here. This galaxy that is supposedly devoid of any dark matter might actually be filled with it. Another team of physicists posted a study claiming that the galaxy in question was behaving as if it did have dark matter after all. The original paper published in March 2018 based its mind-boggling claim of the dark matter-free galaxy on the way clusters of stars were moving through the thin, diffuse space it occupied. These stars seem to be traveling at exactly the speed Einstein's equation of general relativity would predict based on visible matter. In other words, more slowly than they would if the galaxy was mostly made up of dark matter. But the newer study suggested differently. Its authors stated that the researchers behind the first paper had measured the distance between the galaxy and our home planet incorrectly. If their suspicions are true, it might mean that the galaxy is actually much closer to us than the original researchers thought. Normally, astronomers calculate the mass of galaxies based on space objects' brightness and distance to them. If the galaxy in question is closer to Earth than we thought earlier, then its dimness means it's less massive than estimated initially. If it turns out to be true and the galaxy is indeed lighter, it will make much more sense. If this is the case, its globular clusters are moving so slowly not because they're stuck in some kind of dark matter desert. Instead, they're simply traveling at a speed normal for a lightweight galaxy. The first team disagrees and states that the new analysis is flawed, saying that the second team seems to be misinterpreting the key distance measurements coming from the Hubble Space Telescope. That's where it gets slightly technical. Pixel variations might have been mistaken for individual stars. If the galaxy was as close as the second team claims, then it would be resolved into a sea of individual stars. But it's not. Instead, the stars are gathered into clusters. In reality, though, something deeper than a dispute about the movements in a tiny faraway galaxy is going on. It's an argument about the very existence of dark matter. And here we've got a paradox on our hands. The researchers arguing that the bizarre galaxy doesn't contain dark matter are perceived as offering evidence that dark matter does exist in the universe. Because, do you remember? The alternative theory needs gravity to behave in a different way in all places. For a few decades, a group of scientists has been arguing that the entire idea of dark matter is false. Even though researchers have seen some indirect evidence of dark matter, like its pull on distant stars and galaxies, not even a single fragment of it has been captured. No one has been able to demonstrate its existence. The majority of those who disagree with the idea of dark matter are interested in the alternative theory, the one where gravity is kinda off-kilter. And if the real laws of gravity are indeed a bit different than what we can find in physics textbooks, then perhaps we don't need dark matter to explain the behavior of the universe.